We can see you.
Oh, Richard just putting up your information about your tour.
There we go.
Oh, we have to spotlight you, Richard, if we want to see that. Let's see. Because I have the spotlight on Dave. Let's remove.
Well, let's put that back up for a second. Da-da-da.
Yay, we've got 16 people here, Dave, on your tour. So excited.
All right.
So,
Linda's here, welcome.
Power bank to give out, but should we give a minute or two to stragglers?
Sure. We'll give everybody time to, guys, I'm going to put Dave's PayPal email. He's doing this out of the kindness of his heart. He usually charges for this tour, but he's, you know, just going to help us through COVID here and all the stress going on with the election and whatever else is going on in your life. I really think you're going to enjoy it. And if you feel inclined, don't feel pressured, but gratuities are welcome.
We'll give him money, don't worry.
He's just a great guy. You're gonna be blown away by how much he knows about the Titanic.
I've been on
all
Dave's
the Titanic.
tours. He's the
Dave,
best.
was there more Titanic related sites in New York than kind of like a lot of places?
Oh, and yeah, and it's where I find him.
There you are. I see ya.
Great.
Yay! All right, I'm going to mute everyone, and feel free to use the chat feature. And we're so glad you're all here. Dave, you are on the floor. You look so nice.
Oh, thanks. I don't know if it's too late to fix this or not, but it is what it is. So, hello everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for attending my tour. I am a licensed New York City tour guide. I'm inside right now, but outside it's going to be very sunny and very noisy, so bear with me. I'll do the best I can. So, welcome to the tour. Now, we're here at Chelsea Piers, and I'm now under Pier 62, and looking at Pier 61, which is behind me. Now, in this area, there's a lot of random national flags. Oh, this is on me, right? Let me turn this around too, while I can still see myself. There's a lot of... Okay. There's a lot of international flags here, all up and down here. And most especially, I don't have very good wind today, but the flag of Canada, our good friends to the north. It should come as no surprise that ourselves and our friends to the north share the longest unfortified border in the world. And Canadian friends include Deanna Ryanmeister and Renee Bergeron. It's also the home of Halifax, Nova Scotia. And as you may or may not know, several days after the sinking of Titanic, the Mackie Bennett went back to the area and several other vessels, and they pulled hundreds of bodies out of the sea and reburied them in Halifax, Nova Scotia, up in Canada. All right, now the whole area was started because there were some businessmen in the 1890s, and they knew that they were going to need some international shipping. So on this area here, they decided to build the Chelsea Piers. It's a set of piers all connected by a superstructure. Now, here's a wonderful photo of them being built. Now, these pictures have placards, but the history here is very iffy, so I'm going to have to question a lot of things here. It says it's day 6 of progress, which is, of course, ridiculous, but you can see the steel framework, and soon they're going to be adding the concrete.
I should have come.
Here's another vintage photo. Basically, the same thing, with just more progress, and you can see the iron archways coming into view. And we'll see the one that's left later on. Sorry, there's some kids clumping around here. And here's another view of the whole thing coming into shape. And this is around about the time of the sailing of Titanic. Now, by the way, now here's Pier 61 and Pier 60 and so on and so on. Now, I should say that I'm going to be walking in a linear fashion, which means that the actual chronology will be a little bit skewed. But anyway, this is the piers as they were at the time of the arrival RMS Titanic. Now this, I think skating class just got out. Now this
They pulled
picture is
it.
very interesting. You can see the iron archway in the background, and it says Titanic Information Bureau here, and this is by the Cunard store. Now, what happened was when the businessmen started to get going on this, there were several firms that
I
were
should have
in the
gone
animal shipping
photographing
trade.
with him.
One of them was the Cunard line, and they had the largest vessels in the world, Lusitania and Mauritania. Then it's the White Star line and a third German firm. They all decided to get in on the act. So you can see White Star and Cunard here. Now this is a photo of Carpathia. Carpathia was the rescue ship
They should have
that took
fucking
the
had me come photograph it.
712 survivors and brought them back to Europe. Now, this caption is definitely wrong because it says that that's her pictured on the 20th, but we know that she left on the 19th. That's supported by a New York Times article on the 20th saying that she left yesterday. Now, Captain Rostron of the Carpathia was asked to testify at the Senate inquiry, the American hearings. He did that on the morning of the 19th, and that afternoon it was heading back to Europe. Now, this is just a general photograph of the area, but among other things, it mentions an actress, Mary Pickford, who we know sailed on Olympic. Now, what the White Star Line did was they had a plan to build the 3 largest vessels in the world, and they're going to be called Olympic class vessels. The first one was Olympic, second one is Our Lady, Titanic, and the third one was Britannic. And Titanic in her time was the greatest and largest ship in the world. Now here's another area here. Now we're near Pier 59, the White Star Line Pier, but also what we're going to see today is Pier 54, the old Cunard Pier. And this is Louis. This caption says that this is her leaving before being torpedoed in the Atlantic, which happened in 1915, May 7th. So if that caption is true, that's Lusitania and her last time encountering dry land. Now, this is very interesting. Now, this more modern picture of New York City shows, among other things, the Empire State Building, tallest building in the world for over 4 decades. That's on the site of the original Waldorf Astoria Hotel, where they had the Senate inquiry, the Titanic hearings. Now, this is a good aerial photo of the area and its time. Now, the original shoreline was actually near here where 11th Avenue skews inward, and it came along like that. This is all from the 1837 landfill. Now, the businessmen that wanted to form the piers were told by the Department of War that they could not be that long extending out into the Hudson River. So what Manhattan did was they actually cut inwards here to build these piers the length they needed. So if you look at the map, you can see that they're neither parallel nor perpendicular with the straight pattern. That's because it's an artificial cutting. So 11th Avenue actually merges with 10th Avenue later on. And this is Pier 59. So Olympic, which came here, and Captain Smith of Titanic sailed here on Olympic at least 9 times. So they were both going to be here. 58, of course, is demolished by then, and there's just pilings in the water. So back to some of these flags out here. Well, I still got lousy wind, but here is the flag of Brazil. And friends from there include Bruno Piola, and I'm going to wreck his name, but Jean Sciuciato, I think. Well, sorry, Jean, but that's the best I can make out of your name. A couple others, Croatia, lousy light. And, well, this may look like Texas, but Jennifer and Ned Bellick would know that it's not. It's actually Chile. Oh, phooey. Lazuli.
Oh, nice.
Now,
Dave, I don't want to interrupt you, but somebody asked if you could try to hold the camera a little steadier. I know that's probably hard.
Okay, all right. Now, Captain Rostron of the Carpathia also captained Mauritania, and he may have been the first captain to bring troops back from the war to end all wars. Now, this caption says that that's Mauritania coming back, and here's military men coming off it. So it may have been captained by Rostron at the time. And as you can see, Maury is painted in dazzle. That was to foil the U-boats, and she's even mounted with a deck gun. And Mauritania, in her time, was also the largest vessel in the world. Now, okay, I'll try to make this smoother. Now, outside here, parked here, is a vessel called the Lexington. Nothing really special about it, but Lexington Avenue is where we have the current Waldorf Astoria Hotel. And of course, Astoria in this case is John Jacob Astor IV, who was the richest person on Titanic, possibly the US, and maybe even the world. Now, there were many events there at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, the original one, and one of them was a fundraiser that was done by Gloria Swanson. And here she is. Now, the amazing thing about RMS Titanic is her place in history. Now, she was sunk while she was the largest and greatest ship in the world. But that window was only about a month because she was going to be surpassed by Der Imperator, a German vessel. I think we're getting a reunion of our own kind here. And Der Imperator was purchased by the Cunard Lines after the war and was recommissioned as the Berengaria. So here's Gloria Swanson on the Berengaria. Now, Olympic, the first vessel, went to Europe and to the 1936 Berlin Games, witnessed, by the way, by Der Führer himself. Now, not pictured here is Jesse Owens, but Jesse Owens is returning after the games here. I know this is a big crowd, but that's him with his back to the camera, Jesse Owens, and he's addressing America here on Olympic. Okay, now, try to make this smooth as possible. There's Egypt, and there's... Okay. Apologies again, but this is the flag, I'll show you in a moment, of Australia. Well, I guess that's about the best I can get. Really, I had a very good breeze the other day. Now, Australia is interesting. There were 6 Australians on board, and the White Star Line was actually founded for the gold rush for the land Dinanda. And we have many, many good friends in Australia, of course, including Inger Scheel, Rob Hayes, and many, many other people. Okay, so now we're going to head here. That's Pier 61, and we're going to head under Pier 60. Now, as for the 3 vessels, now virtually everybody in the world knows what happened to Titanic. I'm just going to put this back for a moment. Got me? No. So virtually everybody knows what happened to Titanic, and the 3rd vessel, Britannic, was actually mined and sunk, but the first one, Olympic, was amazing. She's known as Old Reliable. In her time, she banged into piers and wharves and rocks and other ships, and she was almost sunk by ice, survived typhoons, a rogue wave, and eventually she was torn apart in Scotland. So there's quite a legacy to all 3 of the Olympic-class vessels. Okay, I gotta test this now. Okay, so heading back. Oh. All right, so more international flags. And this is the flag of Sweden. Now, Swedish was the 2nd most common language spoken on Titanic because as many as 1/3 of the steerage 4 seas. And this is the flag of Switzerland. Of course, we have the Swiss Titanic Society, headed by our friend Gunther Bobler. Skipping Peru. And here's another good friend of the United States. Here's the flag of Israel. And of course, we have our friend Ellie Moskowitz, the author of Jews of Titanic. And Ellie Moskowitz tells us in the book that, among other things, he says that kosher food was available in ocean liners as early as 1904, and Titanic even had a kosher chef. Now, to Americans, I know the name sounds a little strange. It sounds like a woman's name. We would think that it's Eli, but his name is in fact Ellie. I'll have to mention that to Americans. Now, this is the flag of Guyana. Now, that has nothing to do with anything directly, but that was designed by Dr. Whitney Smith. In his time, the only full-time vexillologist in the U.S. And I knew him because I grew up on the same block as him in Winchester, Massachusetts. And also in Winchester, Massachusetts was Joseph Carvalho. He was a model ships builder, and among other things, he built the ship's model of Titanic in the late 1950s. And other people met him through this ship, and they corresponded, like Bob Gibbons and Ed Kamuta, and they all formed, in 1963, the TEA, the Titanic Enthusiasts of America, the oldest of its kind in the world. Today, the THS, the Titanic Historical Society, founded over the ship's model of a Winchester man. Also in Winchester, Whitney Smith and myself. Here is the flag of the Republic of Ireland. And Titanic famously left Southampton, stopped in at Cherbourg, France, but her last stop was actually in Queenstown, Ireland. Now today it has another name of Cove. Now this is a peculiar name because it's spelled C-O-B-H. And by American English rules, it would be pronounced cob, like corn on the cob, but it's actually cove, like a marina. So if you read it written down, it says actually Cove. And of course, we have many, many friends in Ireland as well. Now this is a strange quirk. Now these flags are not alphabetical, they're not geographical. Sorry, we got a chopper overhead. I know it's a little loud. But for some reason, ancient adversaries, Turkey and Greece, are next to each other. I have no idea why. Now Greece is where we have the Aegean Sea, where we have the wreck of Britannic. It's technically owned by an Englishman, but the Greeks are very fastidious about any diving and salvaging there, so it's very difficult to deal with them, as I'm told, but Britannic, the wreck of her, is now in Greek waters. All right, so heading past Norway, and this is just a historical bonus, there are actually 2 flags in the world with identical colors, Chad and Romania. Now, Chad in Africa has more of a squarish flag, but this is probably Romania because Romania is more oblong. Now, this is Pier 59. Now, Pier 54 was abandoned, derelict, and demolished, but Pier 59 has been repurposed into a golf driving range. And that's the net you can see here. I guess they're a bit optimistic about all the golfers here. And where we are right now on the uptown side of Pier 59, this is where Olympic moored here every time she arrived here. And as well as Titanic would have been right here. We're looking at where Titanic would have made it, but she sunk on her maiden voyage and never made it here. Now, I'm going to try and have a little fun here. We're going to take a look at the golfers. It's lousy light, so I don't think you can see them, but you might be able to hear them chipping away. I'll do my best. If not, well, what else? But there's a couple movies filmed out here too. If nothing else, I'll simply show you the golf balls. But there's 2 or 3 nets here. Oh, there's the golf ball retrieving card. I guess everybody's trying to knock it. Sorry, I'll be a little more gradual here. So, okay, lousy light, I know. But all those sounds you can hear are people chipping out there on Pier 59. And this is very cool. As a matter of fact, you can actually walk out to the end of it and look at the Hudson River, New Jersey in the background, get some chow or a book, and it's very nice in there.
Dave, do you need to go and do you have to pay to get out there? Like, do you have to, or is
No,
that
no.
anybody can go out?
Right. It's gratis. It's free. You can just stroll out, I imagine she just did, and just hang there. That's the whole walkway there, and it's just there's benches at the end, and it's very pretty.
Cool.
Now, here's another historical bonus. Now, that building is on top of that is the Edge, which is the highest observation deck in the Western Hemisphere, and they even have a glass triangle in the middle, so you can stand on that and look down at the streets of Manhattan. Now, almost invisible in the foreground, another silvery building is 10 Hudson Yards. At 878 feet tall, that's the most similar thing in Manhattan to Titanic on end. Why? Because she stood 882 feet long or tall on her end. Now, we're at the Chelsea Piers here. That's the upper decks and docks, and then a few others were named the Hudson River Yards. Now, the whole superstructure was demolished in 1991. I know that seems fairly recent, but Chelsea Piers, the work on the refurbishment started here in 1994 and opened to the public in August of 1995. All right, now I'm going to walk a little bit here, but what's going to happen is I'm going to put my mask on to be compliant, and it's going to be also very noisy and very sunny as well. So to fumble with the camera for a moment, I'm going to Jill put up a picture, and I'll be right back.
Oh, I know. Richard was going to do that, but somehow he got booted out and can't get into the Zoom. I wonder
No, just put it
I
down.
can
So you
figure
just
out
put a
how to
nice
do that.
ceiling here.
What picture did you want? The lifeboat
I'm
one?
in.
Oh, you're in? Yay!
I'm here. I'm here. It's got to be that one.
Incoming transmission. That's cool.
You guys see it?
No, it just says Richard has started screen sharing.
There.
Okay, I'm back
There we
anyway.
go.
Hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm going to do the mask now here. Oh, all right. Well, that's a photo of the 13 lifeboats that were taken back on Carpathia that belonged to the White Star Line and were dropped off here. And you can go back to me now, I think.
Thank you, Richard. And if anyone knows who colorized that, we would love to know to give them.
Yeah, we figure it's Roman Potapov, but we can't know exactly. So Chelsea Piers itself, here's this wonderful, attractive little practice putting green. Here's the golf shop,
We need to stop
the
right.
bar and a restaurant nearby. And there's, well, it's closed right now, but there's video equipment there. They have a video studio and so on. So we're going to have a little fun here, or I should say get a little interactive. So if you're near your keyboards, I'm going to ask a question, and let's see if you can figure what it is. Please type in, which if you think you know, the birthplace of Titanic. Where was the ship built?
Oh, you guys better know this. Allie says Belfast with a question mark. Richard said Belfast with exclamation points.
Are we getting a consensus here?
Yep, Belfast, Donna. Fiona, yep, it's a consensus. We are with a bright group of people.
Standing.
know
Now
their
it's-
Titanic history.
But again, it's going to get a little noisy here. Now, this is the IAC building, Interactive Corporation. And this building was made on the fortune of gaming, video games, the fortune of Barry Diller. All right, so, and we'll mention Barry Diller later on anyway. So, all right, so again, it's going to be a little noisy here, a little sunny, where at the highways it is. Now, I also wanted to mention, by the way, I know it's noisy here. I also wanted to mention that when I spoke of the 1936 Olympics, Germany, of course, is a wonderful friend of the U.S., and we have many friends over there, including Uncle Schleier, of course. and Norbert Zimmermann and Tosten, and of course many, many others. Good friends in Germany. Okay, so there's some, we got a break in the traffic, that's good. Okay, now we're gonna
What a
get
beautiful day you got.
oh, thank you. Yes, it's reckoned to be 71 degrees Fahrenheit.
Thank you, Mother Nature.
True that. All right, well, now
You're kind of going backwards because we ended up at the pier when we took the tour.
exactly. This is a new route for me. Now, as you can see, as I mentioned before, the people who built this are very optimistic about the golfers, blocking them off. Now, to my eyes, this looks like a gantry. Now, that's the cage before cranes where they built the class vessels, including, of course, Titanic and so on and so on. Now, I don't know if you can read this here, but the ship in the foreground is the Calypso. Now, Calypso is mentioned, of course, in Pirates of the Caribbean. And that's significant because the cursed pieces of Aztec gold, how many were there? 882. And again, that's the length of Titanic, 882 feet. Johnny Depp, by the way, was also a possibility to play Jack in the movie. A possibility for Rose, Winona Ryder.
Wow, I didn't know that. Dave, I don't remember all those boats being pulled. Is that all something new that people can pull their boats in right there?
Yes, and there's all sorts of docks in the background too, as you can see, and every once in a while they're moored up there as well. There's actually, I don't know if you can see out in the water, but just past those pilings, there's a boat right now. The sail is down, but it's powered and it's heading downstream.
Wow, that's pretty neat.
Uh-huh. So, and these are the abandoned pilings still left in the water, just rotting away, and that's what's left of Pier 58, and this is Pier 57.
Wow.
Look at that guy.
It looks really pretty with that walking path. And can people bike on that path too now?
Yes, and I'll sort of mention that later on, but you can see a woman roller skating, jogging.
Oh,
with
nice. Wow, that's really come a long way since I was there
maybe
5 years ago.
Or bicyclists. So it's sort of like Dr. Seuss, when all these people are all in those nutty little, everything's on wheels, and it's sort of like that because everything on wheels you can see people are using somehow. So it's kind of like
yeah, that's great. Oh, that's so nice.
all right, now just bear with me. It's going to get a little noisy again, but in the meantime, we're going to get a little more interactive. So if you're at your keyboards, please answer me this. Please type in the month and the year of the sailing, the maiden voyage of Titanic.
Maiden Voyage. Let's see. I'll read these off to you when they come in. Someone asked what time it was there, and it is 12:26. Well, now 12:29. Ellie says 4/19/12. Oh, I think he wants specific, guys. Richard got specific, April 10th, 1912. Melissa got April 10th, 1912. Everyone else said April 1912. So everyone knew it was April. And the other two said April 10th. LG, our child, I'm not sure how old, but says sank on April 14th, 1912, which actually hit the iceberg and then sank on the 15th. Are they right? Are they right with the April 10th there, Dave? Left the UK on the 11th, Ellie said.
Well, sounds like a little extra info, but how do we do, Jill? Okay?
Cindy said, great tie, Dave.
Yeah, and whatnot. Treble clefs. Okay, I'm gonna really struggle with this because okay, I think I got it. Are you seeing ahead of me now? No. I gotta try this again. Just bear with me. Okay. All right, now this is 14th Street the widest street in Manhattan, or the longest crosstown street, the widest location in Manhattan. It's
Wait, what is that again? 13?
14.
14? Oh, I didn't know.
It's the 2.5 miles long, which is roughly the
Wow.
length of Central Park, by the way, and it's also the depth of Titanic right now. So if we were at the wreck, then the surface of the water would be 2.5 miles away at the Con Ed plant, which you can't even see. Now, all right, now this is also where 10th Avenue and 11th Avenue come together. They merge at that small triangular hotel. Now, that building up there, and it's got a bare flagpole today, but that's 8th Avenue. And now this building is important, this little motel. Now, Captain Rostron of the Carpathia, he had just taken on 712 passengers, but he had his own passengers to think of as well. And he had options. He could have taken everybody to Boston or Liverpool or Halifax or keep going to the Mediterranean. But he decided to come here to New York and continue the passengers at the expense of his own passengers. Now, nobody knew exactly what was going on with Titanic, but Carl Van Ande of the New York Times had a hunch. When he knew about Rostron and the Carpathia, he figured that Rostron is going to come here. So he embedded his reporters here in the motel. So when Carpathia arrived on the evening of April 18th, there was a wall of blue at 8th Avenue. The police were holding everybody back. And the only people permitted in were medical personnel and families of the survivors. Some people limited press passes and so on and so on. But Carl Van Ande got the scoop of the century because his people were able to accost everybody while they're coming off Titanic. Everybody wanted to know, what about the Guggenheims? What about John Jacob Astor IV, the Strausses, and so on and so on. By the way, a little pizza here for the workers. Now,
Oh, there's those giant, they made them look on purpose like giant golf tees.
Yes, I think they did, sure. Now, we're at Little Island, but there's really lousy light. There's a lot of sun, so I'm going to overshoot it and then be able to look at it really nice, but you can get the idea anyway. Yeah, the first of these golf tees were installed in December of 2018. But again, we'll see it a little bit better when we have the sun behind us. But this is being founded by Barry Diller, the aforementioned Barry Diller. He actually lives in this area with his celebrity wife, Diane von Furstenberg. And I guess this is a big tribute to the greatness of himself. And this is on the site of the former Pier 54 where Captain Rostron arrived on Carpathia. Now, again, we'll see some better ones later on, but this is a depiction of the future Little Island, and it's purposely above water so that, sea bass or whatever swims around here can swim in between the little golf tees. There's going to be a performance space and so on.
Wow. When's that going to be done? Did they say?
Well, the newest ETA is now spring 2021. In other words, next spring.
Oh.
But with the pandemic, everything's been thrown into, limbo. So that's the official latest opening time. It could happen because I don't know if you can see. Well, you saw the workers before, but typically you can go by and see, hard hats walking around and doing stuff, little busy bees. Sorry, my camera's shaky. Now, what you can see by all the people here, see kids on, the little roller things and whatnot. Pier 59 is not really historic. Pier 54 is the historic place. And I come here every year on April 18th to mark the arrival of Carpathia. But it's very difficult because there's joggers and bikers and, there's the traffic of the highway. So I like candles and, meet people, but it's always a little difficult. And a lot of traffic here. So I'm just going to show you the famous pier with all the highway noise. And I don't know if you can see with all that sun, but yes, White Star and Cunard are still in the paint that are still rusting away. Okay, we're gonna get a break here and walk back in just a moment of three. And bear with us. So,
They're going to keep that up there, I hope, right?
yes.
Good.
Even the future depictions show it clearly in the photographs. And from a practical point of view, if they were going to demolish it, they would have done it a long time ago. If I were doing it, I would have. So
Yeah.
definitely, it's going to be up and running. Yeah, can't see it in this picture, I don't think, but it's in. No, I can't. But it's in depictions of the future uh, pier. All right. So now this is a good view. Now we have the sun behind us, and we can really see it without the highway traffic. So on.
Wow, so different.
I know, in it. So the evening of April 18th, 1912, Captain Rostron sailed up the Hudson River, which is where we are right now, but they did not come here immediately. First, they went to Pier 59. You can still see the golf driving range, the netting over the green Pier 57, and they dropped off the 13 lifeboats because A, they were White Star Line property, and two, they probably couldn't have moored properly anyway with all them hanging on them. So that was the photograph you saw before. And then they backed out without a word, without opening anything. And then they came here to what's now demolished, Pier 54. And that's when she moored. That was the Canard Pier. And that's when they opened the doors. And the 712 survivors all spilled out and back into New York. By the way, here's some workers right now. You see the hard hats up there on the cherry picker?
Oh, yeah.
Rather, they weren't up there futzing around, but it looks like they're putting in some light displays for lights to be looking out over here. So that's interesting. Now, the Hudson River is 315 miles long, connects to West Point and Albany, New York. And it starts up at the Adirondacks at the Lake Tier of the Clouds. And it's not specifically a river because there's usually a downward current, but it actually goes both ways. There's a very long Native American word I can't remember, but it means river that flows both ways. So it goes back and forth, which means the water at the bottom is brackish, which means a combination of fresh water and salt water because it meets the sea. In the background is the great state of New Jersey, the Garden State, our neighbors. Look at this. Oh boy, so the worker's banging something. I think he's trying to shoo all the pigeons off. Okay, now I'm going to look in the sun here, I'm afraid, but downtown is One World Trade Center, the site of the original Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. Now, there are some parallels here because they both had the same designated hospital, which was St. Vincent's Hospital in Greenwich Village. And they both had accidents that happened on a beautiful moment with absolutely no moon and absolutely gorgeous conditions, like today.
Yeah.
And there was a woman there who was killed that morning. Her name was Linda George. And she was going to be married the next month in October. And her and her fiance, their first date together was to see James Cameron's big epic movie, Titanic. Another person killed that morning, his name was Timothy Haviland. And when he found out he was going to get a job up on the 70th or 80th floor, he stood on his desk and said, "I'm the king of the world." So that's at One World Trade Center. Now, just if I can backpack, I've forgotten 101 things as it is so far. And one thing I did forget, which I did want to visit, was about the 36 Olympics. Now, there was a flyover that day of the Hindenburg. Now, Titanic was built in Belfast, and when the first piece of steel was laid down, that was Keel Day, 1909, March 31st. 60 years later to the day, March 31st, 1969, was the release of the maiden record of Led Zeppelin. On the cover was the Hindenburg crashing. Now, they have songs like Your Time Is Gonna Come, and I think this really sums it up, Good Times, Bad Times. It gets even better because Led Zeppelin recorded that record in Olympic Studios on the Atlantic label. So there's my tie-in. Now, speaking of rock groups and things like that, 60 years ago today was the birth of Tommy Thayer of Kiss. So he turned 60 today, and that's interesting because there was Jack Thayer, who was a person on Titanic, who was a cricket player, and so on and so on. And also, uh, the longtime manager of the band was Doc McGee, and on Kennard, their doctor was Dr. Frank McGee. And Paul Stanley, by the way, of Kiss, is a big collector, and he even is a proud owner of a piece of Titanic wood. Huh. So that's a couple tie-ins for today. So if you're a Kiss fan, listen to some Kiss tonight. 60 years. Now, what we're looking at here, I know there's lousy sun again, but that's the Whitney Museum, and that's from the art of Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney. Now, she died in 1942 on April 18th, which is exactly 30 years to the day after Titanic arrived here in Chelsea Piers. So that's kind of the gist of it here. If there's any questions or comments or something like that, I can't read a thing because I'm blind because of all this sun, but Jill can
I can read it out. Dave, I remember when we went on the tour, remember we had that descendant of survivor Mary McGovern with us from Ireland, and she told us that when the Carpathia arrived, that Margaret Brown had actually arranged for Gimbals to come and pick up survivors and take them places, and they took her, I guess it was her aunt, to her brother's house. But I thought that was just another neat, wonderful thing that Margaret took care of.
Yeah, they stuck around, and which is an incredible tribute to Margaret Brown, because with absolutely no obligation, everybody else is ditching, and she could have too, but she stuck around and she helped the immigrants with, questions about where to go and conversions of money. And Margaret, by the way, spoke 5 languages, so she was an enormous help to the immigrants and widows and people who just had, as of that moment, absolutely no known future.
I know, help get some money together and clothes together. It's just a wonderful.
And Margaret was actually a driving force in the Titanic lighthouse, which is, maybe having some sort of big renovation and reopening in a year or 3 too.
Yeah. Here says, Dave, does a transcript exist of the Titanic inquiry?
Yes, it does, but it is very dry reading. You cannot read it like a book. It's like reading a dictionary. It's stunningly boring. It's astonishingly monotonous. And so really you have to just take it from the experts, the people who've already done the dirty work. They're the ones that distill it down. So if you can read it in some sort of, paragraph form, if somebody else has put it into prose, read it that way. Do not read the originals. I wouldn't finish a page before I go to sleep. And it's really just the same 10 or 20 questions over and over again. Just, what about this? What about that?
She likes to read dry transcripts. She wanted to know if it's available online, and I know you can go to the Titanic Inquiry Project, and you can read it online.
Yeah, but there was over 25,000 questions answered overall.
Yeah, and I think there is a search feature on there. One of the things I found really fascinating with the inquiry is they called up Ernest Shackleton, the Arctic explorer, and asked him questions about, icebergs and how captains should behave around them. It was really interesting.
And he was commenting too about, you shouldn't be speeding through the night, just as a general principle. So, I mean, he had the 2020 hindsight, but yes, that was his thoughts. Yes. Yeah. Now, speaking at the Senate inquiry, where there was a second officer, Lightoller, who insisted that the ship sank in one piece. There was Frederick Fleet, the lookout, who first saw the iceberg. There's Bruce Ismay, the managing director of the White Star Line, Captain Rostron, in his one-day hero of the Carpathia, and Frederick Barrett, who was the lead stoker. And they all spoke, and many, many other people, and responded to questions whenever possible. So,
great question, Linda, because I'm sure other people are wondering. There's also a little book I've got a book called The Titanic Disaster Hearings by Tom Coons. So if you want something it's the official transcripts of the 1912 Senate investigations.
And just bear in mind, there's also two of them. There was the original one here. It started at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, then headed down to Washington, D.C., but then, which was for obvious reasons, because everybody was here and their memories were fresh. But then the second one was in London, England. So there's actually two of them. And both.
I actually, one year I was in New York City, I actually went to a Titanic inquiry reenactment, and it was fascinating. My friend Jane and I went, and I thought they did a great job
Wow.
reenacting that. Oh, Linda said, I teach in a court reporting school, and it would be a great practice dictation. It sure would, because as Dave said, they asked the same thing. So, where were you, blah, blah, blah. So you were at that spot. So at that spot were you? So like they ask the same thing this 100 different ways, like in a courtroom. What a beautiful day.
Right, it's incredibly gorgeous, and here I am wearing sunblock in November. So, any questions or comments? Anybody else?
Anybody else have comments, questions? Language was different then. Richard said, I don't know, it seemed like the same way they do court nowadays. But they didn't seem like the New York one, they didn't really know much about ships, so they just were trying to understand. And it seemed like in the British inquiry, they actually knew something.
Right, they were probably like lawyers more than anything. Now, the wreck of Titanic today is administered, I shouldn't say administered, but is mediated by a judge who is a maritime judge, and her name is Rebecca Beach Smith, and she's spent her time on the water and behind the bench, so she knows everything about what she's talking about. So what she says goes. She wasn't, a divorce lawyer up in rotation. She's an actual maritime judge, so she knows everything about what people are saying in general. Now, since we are here, we can't see it, but a couple blocks away is the Jane Hotel. Now, about 30 people were expected that night of the arrival at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, and there were many, many, many churches and synagogues and drunk tanks and everything else that were able to put up the survivors. But the crew was kept at the Jane Hotel, which is not far from here. I reckon maybe about a 10-minute walk, maybe 5 minutes. So the crew came off of the pier here and went to the Jane, not far from here. And since I can't really see what...
Oh. Sorry, Dave, I think I accidentally muted you.
So I can prattle on or sign off or whatever you like, but this is it, and you can get a look at the archway pre-renovation for what it's worth. But people now, yes, it looks like they're installing light fixtures that are going to be facing the entrance to Little Island. And again, there's pretty good sun on it, so there's the future depiction of it.
Does anybody want to ask Dave, any questions while we got him here, or what other kind of sites he visits?
I've got two pictures that I believe you sent, but we haven't seen yet.
Ellie said he has questions. Ellie, I'm going to unmute you, or ask to unmute you. And Cindy said, this was interesting. I like the story about the newspaper got the scoop of the century.
That's right. Carr Van Anda. It's an unusual first name. It's C-A-R-R.
Donna said, wonderful. Thank you. Go ahead, Ellie.
Dave, I have a question about the flags.
Okay.
You said that they were random. Why those flags? Why those countries? You explained some of them, but Israel didn't even exist back then. And I understand you said about the kosher stuff, but why Peru? Why not all the other countries that had passengers on board?
Oh, well, it was not specific to Titanic in general. It was just current national flags just planted there. There was a whole set that we didn't see. The only one that had any meaning at all was the American flag, which is at the absolute end, Pier 62, which we did not go as far as. We started at Pier 61. But other than that, it's just flags just planted in place. But no, nothing specific about Titanic. I just extrapolated meaning from the flags there.
Interesting. Okay, I have a technical question to ask you, Dave.
Okay.
When you give tours, is it only over there at the pier, or do you do tours on other Titanic
Oh.
sites around New York City?
Oh, well, I ran Jill ragged actually by putting her on 2 different Titanic tours of mine in the same day. So I have a walking tour that ends here, but it starts in a completely different area of Manhattan. And I have another one that's a photography tour where we go to some Strauss sites, Astor sites, and so on and so on. And this is really the 3rd or 4th one that I have. This is the first one today that I've done a string like this. So I have several to choose from.
Okay.
Dave, we've got a couple images you sent me that we haven't seen yet.
Okay.
And Dave, Fred wanted to know if you wanted to talk about what you thought about the plans to salvage the wreck. Do you have thoughts about that, or you not want to go there, or whatever you choose to do?
Yeah, okay. Well, yes. Now, there is a big controversy about that right now. Now the official salvaging team is the RMSTI, RMS Titanic International, and they have been designated. And it wasn't just that they bought their way in; they're actually approved and officiated, and everything they do has to be cleared by Rebecca Beach Smith. So there's a very tight leash on them, but they're the ones. Now they have the collection as it is, and as it is, they cannot even sell it off in bits. They must only sell it piecemeal, and because of the value of it, they cannot actually find a buyer. Now, as for further salvaging, that's on hold for the moment for lots of logistical reasons. And I believe the current status is that you can take things from the debris field, like dolls and plates and glasses. But as I think I have it, you cannot currently actually remove items and artifacts from the wreck itself. Now, as to the wreck itself, there have been fanciful and crazy theories about raising the wreck, which is, ideas from filling her full of golf balls to all sorts of things. And that's deemed impractical and impossible because of A, the cost, and 2, she's just too fragile and delicate. Now, on that subject, I should mention that in the movie Race to Titanic, at the end, when the Titanic is raised, she's sailing back here in New York, and in the background are the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. So, in that moment, you see both Titanic and the World Trade Center. But, so the salvage itself is in limbo. Now, until recently, the last manned dives were in 2005. Then there were some purely photographic dives in 2010, and then another set this just about a year ago. But those were done by National Geographic because Nat Geo finances that things to put together a pretty good show. And I don't believe there was any clause in that or any salvage attempts. I think it was just photography again. And thank you, Fred.
And Richard typed in here, Dave Gallo from RMST said they are not going to cut into the wreck, but use existing holes like the skylight. He told that to us in a chat recently.
Yes, and right. Now that's another topic which he could probably address better anyway, but just to sum it up, there is thoughts of removing the wireless telegraph, arguably the most famous one in the world. But there's a lot of people that are overreacting, but they're not exactly informed on it because, as I have it, it's going to be minimally invasive because you don't even have to cut anything at all, not even the wall, because as I believe I've heard, she's only suspending on 2 wires. So all you have to do is go snip, snip, and it can be seen by the public. But I'm not going to get into all the controversy, but it is possible with minimal invasive surgery.
Yeah. Cindy said it was interesting. She liked the story how the newspaper got the scoop of the century. Fred said the prize is the bridge telegraph. Ellie said, tell Dave we will meet in the summer of 2021. Anyone who wants to join, I'll be happy to meet. That would be great, Ellie. We could have I'll come down from Rochester.
Hopefully, yeah.
I drive part way and then take the train in. Richard said just the motor generator was the rotary spark gap. Everyone's being so quiet.
So thinking back to normal, we can talk about actually physically walking around again.
Yeah, it's really wow. It's just so what a beautiful day, beautiful view.
Man. A little hazy, but sure is beautiful.
If you guys go into the event itself, I posted some pictures from when I took the tour with Dave, so you could kind of see what the tour be like. And there's a link there to his page. And what was that?
So,
And just a reminder, everyone, that go and look up in the chat and check the PayPal link.
Oh yeah, I can put that up there again. Thank you for doing this.
To tip Dave for his time for showing all this.
Yeah.
But I'll be glad to hang around, but I don't want to lock anybody out of their keyboards if they're sitting down and they're jonesing to get out too. So I can
get out in the nice day.
Whatever.
Just had a new arrival. Hello, new person. Dave's just finishing up, so if you have any questions or. Why don't I unmute everyone and then I'll just say hello. Let's see. I'll let you say hi to everyone. I'm gonna unmute and then I'll move it to gallery view. Everyone can. Cindy said thanks again. She's heading out. It was interesting. Richard's putting a link up to the book club store. So you all can unmute yourselves if you want. Ellie said thanks, Dave.
Sorry, I missed most of it.
Well, you will. I did live stream this in the book club and a couple other places. So if you, you can all.
It'll be on Facebook, our YouTube channel, in probably a couple 3 hours. So.
Okay, cool.
Sorry, I got distracted. I was looking for the allow participants to unmute. Oh, there we go.
I've got to pull it and pull it off of YouTube because I had a computer glitch. So I was recording it, but we do have backups.
Now, just another note about the World Trade Center. I should also say that both of these things were introduced in early April. In 1973, the ribbon cutting downtown was April 4th. In 1912, when Titanic arrived in Southampton and the senior officers boarded, that was April 3rd. And they also, and as for the Hindenburg, that also gave us some phrases in pop culture. The Hindenburg gave us "Oh, the Humanity," and Titanic gave us "Iceberg right ahead."
Yes.
And nobody actually saw where the fire broke out on the Hindenburg, and nobody actually saw the collision of Titanic and the iceberg. They didn't actually see the impact point. And they were both high-impact events. Or I should say World Trade Center and Titanic were both high-speed impact events.
Fiona said goodbye. Thanks for coming, Fiona.
Good question real quick.
Go ahead, Maria.
Was the black ironwork that we were seeing, is that where Titanic was supposed to come into? Is that was built for?
No, that's a very common misconception, and it's easy to make. You're referring to this, right? Oh, you're referring to this? You're talking about this, yes?
Yeah, yeah.
No. And now that's where a lot of people get the story wrong because they sort of condense the story and that's what they say. Now, Titanic was supposed to come into Pier 54 with you can see the Gulf driving range, but the Carpathia came here with the survivors. So a lot of people kind of simplify the story and they condense it and they get it wrong for that reason. So it's an easy to make misconception, but the answer is no. This is the
Okay.
Cunard Pier. So this is where Lusitania came, Mauritania, and of course Carpathia. But Olympic did go into Pier 59 as was Titanic was supposed to.
59.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Where the
Thank
Gulf
you.
range is now. So, should we call it a day, or anybody else want to chime
Anybody
in?
else has any questions? Dave, Richard put a little link to our little book club store that we have. Do you want to pick up like a mug or a shirt or something? And Richard had a little. You guys could stay and chat, and then Richard wanted to show a little movie after this if people are interested. Maybe you want to tell them what it's about, Richard.
We'll end the recording in the stream. Everybody can take a little bit of a break, and then I guess it's 1 o'clock now. So at let's say 1:15 Eastern time, we can come back, and I have the video that just was shown here a couple days ago on the secrets of the dead on the Titanic. So it's a pretty interesting documentary. So I don't know if everybody's had a chance to see it, but I was able to snag it. So we can stay and watch it. We won't do it on Facebook, but it'll be here on Zoom. So